Hi guys, Olive here. Here today to answer the last batch of questions that I got for my celebratory 25K Q&A. If you missed either of the first two parts, I will be sure to link those for you in the description box below. Be sure to go watch those if you want to hear my answers to those questions, but also be sure to watch at least the beginning of the first part if you don't know anything about this Q&A. I talk about all the logistics relating to this Q&A in the first part. So I talk about where these questions came from, how I organized them, all that good stuff. Stuff I don't want to go into at the beginning of this video because I do want to get straight to the questions. Okay, so starting off, I'm going to be talking about book reviewing, written book reviewing, and then just the concept of book reviewing in general. So the first set of questions is, what drew you to book reviewing and how did you get started? And how did you get into reviewing books for newspapers? Well, basically my path to becoming a written book reviewer started when I made a BookTube channel, because not only has it primed me to think about books in a way where I'm going to have to present them to an audience, where I think about them in a different way than just I liked it or I didn't like it. You have to think about how to present that book to an audience of people, and you don't know necessarily who they are. So you have to be thinking about the best way to talk about that book. So I was getting ready to become a written book reviewer without even realizing it. But also being a booktuber introduced me to my friend Steve Donahue. We became friends before he even had a BookTube channel, and we've been friends ever since. And one time we were in his living room when we were visiting him in Boston, and he suggested that he thought I might have a little bit of talent for doing it. And I didn't know how to argue with that, because if someone in the field is telling you they think you should give it a try, I think it's wise to listen. So after I took some time to talk myself into trying it, because I didn't know if I'd be any good at it. I've never really considered myself a writer. I still don't, which is something I probably need to shake myself out of. But I wrote my first piece on The Witch Elm by Tana French, and I loved it. I loved the process. I loved how deeply it made me think about the book. And so I was working with Steve, and I was writing pieces for free for Open Letters Review. Open Letters Review doesn't pay, but it's a really good way to build up a portfolio. And then I started pitching, and that's basically how you continue on going when you're working as a freelance reviewer. So that's how I got started. It's how I pushed myself into the field, and it's an ongoing process because it's very competitive, and it seems like every single day there are fewer venues out there who are accepting freelancers. So it's not easy. It's possible to get into if you want to, but you're going to be doing it for free for a while. You have to really love it, and you have to be prepared for a lot of rejection. The next question is, how do you juggle between reading for your book reviewing job and reading for pleasure? Well, it's just a hierarchy. Any books that I'm commissioned to review, those have to come first. And then after that, I would say books for the channel. And then after that would be books for pleasure. But the books for pleasure and the books for the channel kind of go hand in hand. But then again, the books for pleasure go hand in hand with the reviewing as well, because I like all the books I read. It's a very rare occasion when an editor will come to me and say, we need to cover this book, and they don't care whether or not I want to read it. I can say no. And most of the time, it's part of the pitching process where I'm talking to the editor about books coming out that I think they might like to cover, or they're telling me about one that they heard about, and we kind of decide together that, yes, we're both interested, and then we're going to move forward. So I find pleasure in all of them, but the ones that I'm going to review have to come first. There are deadlines. I got a lot of questions about time management. How do you get so much done? How do you find the time to read and do everything that you do? Are you really structured or more laid back? And I really like that last part because the answer's in there. I'm very structured. I have to be to get all the things done that I do. And I know a lot of people don't like that. I love it. I'm at least part robot. This is why I talk about myself that way. I love that structure. I love a good list, and not just a daily to-do list, a weekly list, a seasonal list, a list of things that aren't important right now, but will be important later on that I regularly check in on. I have a list of BookTube video ideas. I plan out my content months in advance, my TBRs months in advance. I am very, very structured. So that's part of the way that I get so much done, but also I read very quickly. I wouldn't call it speed reading, but I'm capable of reading very fast because I have so much practice. I have personally never been a big fan of the how do I read so much types of videos. I would never be able to make one because it's not a sexy answer. It's not a tip. It's just the bare bones fact that when you do something a lot, when you practice it a lot, you get better at it. You get faster, you get more efficient. And I've had this channel for going on 7 years. If you look at my Goodreads challenges over the years, you'll see my number of books that I read per year has been slowly creeping up because every year I get a little better. So I wouldn't be able to do everything that I do right now if I was the same person as I was 4 to 5 years ago, if I still had that reading speed. But I've also had this channel for a while. I've been writing book reviews for a while, so I've learned the best ways to get things done. So it just takes time. How do you discipline yourself dividing work and non-work activities plus family responsibilities? I don't know that I necessarily have to discipline myself. I just have a way of doing things. I write everything down. I make sure I keep in mind the priority level of all the things I need to do, because family, of course, needs to come first, followed by deadlines, work stuff, and then my personal stuff would come toward the end. That's honestly more the problem, that I sometimes forget I'm a person and forget to schedule in time for me. That's what I'm trying to control right now. But I scatter things depending on when they need to get done. I put them on a day and then I do my best to get them done. And that's just kind of how I live my life. How do you stay organized/focused in these times of many distractions, phones, social media, etc.? You're talking about devices. Your 2 examples are devices and the things that are on those devices. And if they're distracting, get them away from you. That's what I have to do. I'm not going to say I never get distracted, but I found a way where I can put my phone far enough away from me when I'm sitting down reading. My cat likes to sit on my lap, and she gets a real attitude at everything, basically, but definitely if I disturb her while she's sitting on my lap. So I put it far enough away where if it's an emergency, I can grab it, but far enough away where I'm basically telling myself it's focus time. And then with whatever I'm doing, I give myself break periods where it's a break after maybe an hour and a half of focused work to go make myself a cup of tea, get up and walk around. I actually do a lot of good thinking when I'm pacing. I'm a pacer. So I'll give myself some space to get up and do that. But I know when it's time to focus, then it's time to focus. And with all the things I have to do, I can't really afford those types of distractions, and I know that. Do you read a book differently when you know you are going to write a review of it? I handle the book a little bit differently. I'll talk about that in a moment, but reading it differently, no, because there just kind of comes a point when you start talking about books for an audience on a regular basis and you're used to reading critically like a reviewer, you start doing that all the time. It doesn't stop. It doesn't turn off. So be careful what you wish for. If you start reading that way, you will read that way all the time. It's not a bad thing, but it is different. I enjoy that now. I like looking at the books I read that way, but that's also kind of how I'm built as a very logical person. So of course I would find that satisfying. I'm not sure everyone would. Everyone is different. But when I'm reading a book that I know I'm going to review, there's a lot more highlighting of the front matter in my e-reader because I know I'm going to have to talk about the basics of a book in a way that I wouldn't necessarily have to if I wasn't going to be writing about it. But that's true of a lot of the books I read because I also talk about them here on this channel. So I'm paying a whole lot more attention to the small details at the front of the book, where it's set, what time period we're in, not just so I have context, but so I can talk about that in my review, because that's a part of the review, is talking about what happens in it in a non-spoilery way so the reader knows what they're in for. But yeah, when you start thinking about a book like a reviewer, you will start doing that all the time. Do you ever feel like your enjoyment of books is lessened because you feel like you have to read certain books for review purposes? I wouldn't choose to put quotation marks around have to, because if I've agreed to write a review of a book for a venue and they have plans to then pay me for it, then it is, I have to. I've been assigned to write about that book, and it wouldn't look very good. It wouldn't be very professional of me to then not do it. But is my enjoyment of books lessened? I don't think so. I mean, anytime you make something a job, there's going to be just a tiny little bit of fun suctioned out of it because it's been made into a job. And I don't know anyone who loves to work quite that much. I like to work. I don't know that I love it that much. So there is a little bit of pressure on when I'm reading, but it adds to my enjoyment in a different kind of way because I don't just like reading books. I like talking about books, whether it be here on this channel or in print. So I know that I'm going to get to do that after I'm done reading the book. So whatever is taken away by making it a job, it's added back with that anticipation of figuring out the exact right words to talk about this book, or if I really love it, getting someone else to read it, and how am I going to convince them? Like, that's fun. Next couple of questions are very similar. What is your process for writing book reviews? The book review process, how does it work for you? My process is hard to explain because I'm basically writing parts of the review as I'm reading. This is why I need e-copies of ARCs. Physical copies, I have tabs everywhere. I'm writing in the margins. It's just a whole mess. So e-copies. I highlight things. I write notes to myself. There are lines from the review that pop into my head that I make sure to write down because they will not stay in your brain. Never assume they will. And then when I'm done with the book, I have a general sense of what I want to say about it, what I think it did well, what I think it didn't do well, who I think it's for, who I think is the ideal reader for this book. What are the major things I want to communicate? I have those ideas in my head. I have all my notes. I put them all into some sort of a document, maybe not all at once, but I pull them in as I need them. And then I don't really outline or anything because the structure just kind of comes to me. As you can tell, I'm a very organized, structured person, so I kind of have a really good idea in my head of how it will best flow. The lead paragraph is always the hardest, so I normally don't start there. And then I put everything together, and then I read through it a lot. I like to edit my own work a lot. I don't think the first draft of anything is going to be perfect. I've had a lot of good editors over the years, like especially the editors at Harvard, as you would imagine. They would change just like a few things about one of my pieces and then it would just sparkle. And now I'm like, okay, I need to figure out how you did that because I want to do that to my own pieces. So I play with it and then I have to tell myself several different times, stop writing. Eventually you have to stop writing and submit it. I stop agonizing over it and then I submit my piece. What are your favorite reviews that you've written so far? Well, The Witch Elm by Tana French, my first ever written book review, will always hold a special place in my heart because it was my first. But the same goes for all of the first pieces, for all the venues that I've written for. There's just something special about that first piece that you write for the venue. But my favorite ones, I wrote one on this book called Our Last Season by Harvey Arreton for the Christian Science Monitor last year. And that book is really, really special. I both loved it and thought it was well done. And those aren't necessarily the same thing. I like plenty of things that are bad. I watch reality television. So I was so over the moon that I got to write about that. And I wrote it in a way that reflected the sentimental, heartfelt nature of the book. I really like doing that in my book reviews. I like to mimic the experience of reading the book. I like the tone of my review to match that. I like that a whole lot better than having a very distinct style that is distinctly Olive about my reviews. I like to be a chameleon. I like my review to be a preview of what's to come in the book. I ended up being really happy with how that piece turned out. And that's saying something because normally after the fact, like I want to go back and edit them again because I feel like my pieces are never truly done. But I was so pleased with how that turned out. I know my editor loved it. I feel like we're both on the hunt for another book that is that special and that I can write about like that again. I feel like we're looking for that. Hopefully it'll come sometime in the near future. But other pieces I've loved. I really liked writing the piece on Savage Appetites by Rachel Monroe for Open Letters. That was really fun. There's a lot of different psychological questions I got to play with. And I have a whole series discussing the psychology of literary heroines on this channel. You can obviously tell that psychology is something that interests me. So that was fun to write about. But also The Falcon Thief by Joshua Hammer. I got to be more opinionated in that one and also crack some egg jokes. And the last question in this section is, what do you love about reviewing books? I love a lot about reviewing books. I love talking about books. I do love sharing my perspective. But what I love more than anything else, the way I know I've truly succeeded, is when I get a comment in my comment section of my video reviews where someone will tell me, I now know exactly what to expect when I go into this book, because that's what I think the job is preparing your audience to know whether or not they want to read the book. It's not about, do they understand at the end of your review whether or not you liked it? That can be a part of it, especially here on BookTube, because we have such personal connections with our audiences. But I don't think that's the main point of a review. A point of a review is the reader or the viewer will consume that review and then be more informed as to whether or not it's a book for them and whether or not it's worth their time and their money. That is the point of a good book review. And when I get that right, when I help someone like that, or when I can get the essence of a book captured in a single sentence, and that helps someone know whether or not they want to read it, that's a high for me. Next up, there are some questions just about me as a writer. And the first one is, do you keep a journal? Sadly, no. I can't get myself into the habit. I've tried so many times, and I just can't get it to stick. I can never remember to do it. Maybe someday, because I would like to do it, and I would also like to be the type of person who journals. Doesn't that sound distinguished? But as of right now, no, I'm not that distinguished. I got so many questions along the lines of this next batch. Do you think you would ever write a book? Have you considered writing a book? Do you think about writing your own book? I got so many like these. And yes, I do think about writing my own book a lot. Maybe that's another booktuber stereotype that I fit very nicely into. I don't know how you would be so enmeshed in the book world for such a long period of time and not think about writing your own book. But yeah, I do think about it a lot. I would really like to. I'm loosely planning on starting my first novel next year. I need my schedule to calm down, so I'm going to have to make some adjustments. But yeah, I would very much like to write my own book. The next pair of questions is kind of related. If you wrote a book, what would it be about? And is there a book you want to read that hasn't been written yet? That second question has got to be one of the coolest questions I got in this Q&A. I love all of your questions, but that one is such interesting food for thought. And the answer to it is yeah, and it's a book that I would personally like to write. I have so many books knocking around in my brain right now. It's hard to know where to start. I do have one that I know I need to start with, so that's what I'm trying to focus on. But I'm excited about all of them. I'm so hesitant to say anything about the books I want to write, not only because I don't want my ideas to get stolen, that of course is a concern, but also they could change so much from the time I start writing and the time I'm done. It's like that video game conference, E3, where they're premiering all these new video games and they seem so exciting. And then it's like a totally different game by the time it hits the market. I feel like that could happen with me and my books. But very loosely, my first novel that I'm gonna get ready to write here soon is about reality TV. And there's social commentary in there as well. The one that I want to read that hasn't been written yet is the campus novel that I want to write, which is also going to include some time travel and a secret society, possibly the Victorian era, lots of good stuff. I want to write a nonfiction book about groundhogs. I live in Western Pennsylvania. I would really like to write a piece of historical fiction set in Russia that I feel does it justice. I would hope if I write it, I would feel it does it justice. I'd have to work hard at that. But then finally, I would love to write a nonfiction book about the WNBA. And the last question about me as a writer is, would you consider becoming a full-time nonfiction writer? I've never been a nonfiction writer, so I definitely can't consider going full-time. If you mean, would I consider becoming a full-time book reviewer? I don't want to do just one thing. I like having a variety of things. So I don't know. I could see myself, if I go into being a full-time writer, having my own projects, but also doing some ghost writing. That sounds like a lot of fun. Next up, I got a few questions about voiceovers and audiobook narration, because in case you don't know this, I have trained as a voice actor. I have a demo reel and the whole nine. So some people wanted to know, how are things going with the dream of reading audiobooks? Any updates on your foray into audiobooks? I don't have any updates because it's not been something I've had time to actively pursue. Definitely when the pandemic started happening, it got pushed to the side as I started picking up more venues for written reviews. That became my focus. That takes up a lot of my time, as does this channel and everything else in my life. And I learned the hard way in, I'd say, the summer of 2019 that chasing all of your dreams at once is a little bit overwhelming. Something I definitely didn't realize when I started pursuing the goal of reading for audiobooks is that that's not the book world, that's the acting world. And that means that you're auditioning, you're getting rejected a lot. A lot of actors will tell you that auditioning can be a full-time job. I don't have that kind of time with all the different things I'm trying to juggle right now. And I definitely wouldn't have the time to actually go into a studio and record a whole audiobook. I have so many other things. If I don't have time for the job, I shouldn't be pursuing the job. So it's on the back burner right now, but I'm definitely going to come back to it because I really love it. Someone else wants to know, do you have a favorite voice actor? More generally speaking, I really like H. John Benjamin. I think he's hysterical. But if we're talking about audiobook narrators, Rebecca Loman is definitely up there. She narrated the audiobook for Rules of Civility, my favorite book, and she did such a fantastic job. I really like Exie Sands. Anytime I listen to an audiobook that she narrates, I think she does a fantastic job. Same goes for Brittany Presley. I really like the work that Karen Chilton did for the Reluctant Royal series by Alyssa Cole, the romance books, except for the Scottish accent. That was a little rough, but everything else was great. And then my favorite audiobook narrator of the classics is definitely Wanda McCadden. And the last question within this audiobook section is, if you could pick 3 titles to narrate/perform as an audiobook, what would they be and why? I don't know that I have specific titles, but I know that I really like reading Mary Roach books. I read from one of her books in my demo. I read from Stiff. And it worked so well because we have very similar dry, sarcastic senses of humor. And they're just fun. So I would like to read one of hers. Wouldn't that be the dream? I would love to read a work of Russian historical fiction, if only because I know how to pronounce the words. And I know how hard it is on my ears when I'm listening to an audiobook and the narrator doesn't know how to pronounce something in Russian. Like the audiobook narrator for A Gentleman in Moscow did not know how to pronounce dacha. And it made me so angry. And the third one, I guess, would be one of my own books. If I am ever lucky enough to get a book published, I would have to narrate it myself, of course. All the remaining questions in this Q&A are just questions about me, my life, my personal preferences, things like that. So the first question is, what pets do you have? I have one cat. She is a tortoiseshell cat. Her name is Theodora. We call her Thea or sometimes Bunny. And she's a tyrant. I love her, but she's so demanding. She definitely has that tortoiseshell temperament. There's something about their genetics that makes them that way, and she's definitely that way. She's beautiful, and she's great company because she's very talkative. Like, she's constantly meowing. Anyone who's ever done a buddy read with me over Voxer has absolutely heard her harassing me in the background. But we love her. It's the first pet that my husband and I have ever had together. She's a handful, but she's wonderful. The next question is, how are your jellyfish pets doing? This person is talking about this little tank I have over here on my desk here in my reading room. It has 2 fake jellyfish in it. It's just a tank full of water. You turn it on. The 2 jellyfish, I named them Aggie and Ollie, so they swim around when the tank is on. And they're not alive. So I don't have to worry about keeping them alive. So they're doing great. When the tank is on, they have lots of energy. When it's off, they just kind of sit there. 2 people wanted to know, does your husband read a lot too? Do you and your husband read the same kinds of books? My husband is like me in that he has a lot of different interests. So he goes through periods where either he's reading a ton or he's busy doing other stuff. Right now, he's watching a lot of anime. He runs a Discord server, so that is taking up the majority of his attention. The new Expanse book is coming out fairly soon, though, so I know he will read that when it comes out because he reads a lot of sci-fi and fantasy books, which I don't read much of. So we read very different kinds of things. He will read a lot of the nonfiction that I'm interested in. Sometimes I can force him into reading a work of nonfiction, and he always ends up liking it, which is why he does it. So we both read nonfiction, but he's much more interested in sci-fi fantasy. He's just also more generally interested in space. We were just at a library book sale and he got 2 books on space. His office is decorated in space type themes, and that's not really my thing, but it's good for us that we have the different interests because we were both raised as only children. Is your whole family into books like you? They like books. They read books. I wouldn't say they're into books in the same way that I am. The person who would come closest would be my sister, my half-sister. And she has a very, very busy life, and she really likes to binge YA books. I did a whole video with her if you want to hear me and her discuss that. What is your favorite kind of music? I really like a lot of different things. I actually, a while ago, made a Spotify playlist that contains all of my favorite songs. I will link that below if you'd like to get a sampling of what I like. In one of your videos, you mentioned that you struggle with sleep sometimes. How are you able to push through and read during those days? And then someone else asked, how do you read when you're tired? Yeah, I have a lot of sleep issues. I go through periods where I'll wake up super early in the morning and then just can't fall back asleep. It's not a problem going to sleep. It's a problem maintaining sleep. And when I'm going through one of those periods, I have to cut my life down to the very essentials. Like if certain things can't get done, then they just can't get done. And then I have to get myself back on a good sleep schedule. When I'm in one of those periods, I can't read anywhere that I associate with sleep. So nowhere too comfortable where I could possibly doze off. And I also just need to adjust my expectations of how much I'm going to be able to get done because my health needs to come first. Favorite makeup products. Okay, I have a lot, obviously. This could be its own video. I feel like I'd need to make a second channel just to make that kind of a video though, because this is not a makeup channel. But I did bring some of my recent favorites to show you. One of the things I've been loving lately, I'm actually wearing shadows from it right now, is this Z palette that I created. It's from Dandelions Cosmetics, which is what this logo is from. It's a sticker they put in the package and I just slapped it on the back here. But you can buy an empty palette and then get these magnetic eyeshadows to make your own palette. So I recently made my own, this little fall themed palette of all the colors that I want to wear in the fall. And I absolutely love it. I'm wearing it right now, like I said. I recently fell in love with this company called Life's Entropy. It's this indie brand, and they're themed after science. And I found them because of these cream contour sticks. They're cool toned, which matches my skin tone so much better. And I've absolutely been loving them. I love the looks that I can create when my contour isn't warm toned, when that's not my skin color. Also, this highlighter that I'm wearing today is this. It's this, I don't know if you pronounce it IBY, Radiant Glow Highlighter in Prosecco. I got this in my Ipsy bag, which is a little makeup subscription service. You get like these smaller sized products every single month and it lets you sample things. If you want to try it, I'll give you the link down below. But that's how I discover a lot of my products. And this highlighter is beautiful. Next question, would you ever do a makeup get ready with me / book discussion? I've thought about it. There was one time we were at an Airbnb in Richmond. And there was this table that would have been perfectly suited for it. I was so upset that I wasn't ready to do a video like that because it would have been so perfect to film there. But I don't really have a good place here in our house where I can do it. So I would have to figure something out. And I would also want to do it my own way where it would tie into a book in some kind of a way. So maybe someday. Favorite bird species? That's really hard. I love so many. I love all the birds of prey. Of course, I love turkey vultures. That's why my stuffed turkey vulture Rupert is always behind me. But my all-time favorite, I really like the cedar waxwing. I think they're so beautiful. Favorite Christmas tradition? I don't have too many. It's not my favorite holiday, but I do like to trim the tree and I really love finding the perfect presents for people. What are your favorite scents? And do you ever relate or reserve specific scents to particular books? Well, I now work at North Avenue Candles and all of her candles are based on books. So of course I relate all of the scents that she makes to the books, like especially the Pear Blossom and Tea Cake one for Their Eyes Were Watching God, all like the candles of the month that I've worked really closely with so far this year. I definitely associate them with the books. My favorite scents, I have so many. I love basically everything. I don't think I've ever met a candle of Amanda's that I haven't loved. What's your favorite candle scent for fall? Again, I don't know that I could choose just one. I love a little bit of everything. Of course, I love the spicy ones. Those are essential for fall, but I also really like apples and cranberries, those types of scents. Amanda has some really, really good ones right now. I know she does spooky macabre scents, and there's one based on Bram Stoker, and that one is Merlot, blood orange, and clove. And oh, it's fantastic. And she also has another one based on the Headless Horseman. And it's like pumpkin spice, but a more mature, mysterious pumpkin spice where you have the spice, but then also like the scent of a campfire. Oh, it's so good. What kind of work are you doing for the candle company? Do you package the candles, do marketing, or something else? I am technically considered a production assistant, I think. So I'm helping make the candles. They have a very efficient system going right now, and I'm basically filling in where I can. So putting wicks into the candles, labeling them, cleaning them up, organizing things, whatever needs doing. How do you keep your cat away from your candles? I don't really. She has no interest in them. She has her things that make her annoying, that is for sure, but it's mainly the constant meowing. She's not destructive, she doesn't bite, she doesn't scratch, and she has no interest in knocking things over. What's the best and worst movie that you've seen in the past year? The best one, I think, would be This Beautiful Fantastic. I thought it was a little bit cheesy, but really charming. I think if you like cozy things, you will really, really love that movie. The worst, that would probably be the movie Murder by Death. I wanted to watch it because Maggie Smith is in it, and I think the movie Clue, which I absolutely love, drew inspiration from it, but we couldn't even get through it. It was painful. What are your favorite TV shows right now? Well, like I said, I like watching reality TV. There is no one out there who will make me feel ashamed about that. I think it's a lot of fun. I like The Real Housewives, pretty much all of the different Real Housewives franchises. I am watching Vanderpump Rules again. It's not good this season, but whatever, I'm in it this far, so I guess I'll keep watching. And then I'm also watching The Great British Bake Off. I'm not watching the newest series because I want to wait until they've all come out so I can binge through it, but I've been watching some of the older series just as comfort watches. To where would you travel based on your personal reading that you have not already visited? If you could go anywhere in the world on vacation, where would you go? Where would you love to travel when we can do so freely again? I desperately want to go to New Orleans. I've been wanting to go to New Orleans for a really long time. I need to make that happen. I do want to go see Vegas. I've never been to Vegas. And then I want to go everywhere in the world. If we're talking based solely on my reading, I would really like to go to Orkney, which is an archipelago of islands off the northeastern coast of Scotland, I think it is. Next question is, have you ever been to Scotland? No, but I would absolutely love to go to Scotland. What was the thing that sparked your interest in Russia? When I was a child, I had a really good friend who had a Russian stepmother and a Russian stepbrother, and they taught me a few words from the language, and it just never left my mind. I didn't have the opportunity to pursue that interest as a child or as a teenager. But then I got to college and they offered Russian, so I signed up. It was my very first college class. And from learning the language, it led me into learning more about the culture and the history and the politics, and I just absolutely fell in love. If you could go back to, or indeed return to, university/college and study something different, what would you choose? Would you go at all? Going back to my college experience, I liked my college experience. I wouldn't change it. Way too expensive, but that's true everywhere. But I liked everything I studied. I don't regret it. I wish maybe I would have taken 1 or 2 literature courses, but that's the only thing I would change. I liked everything I studied. I really liked going to college. If I were to go back, which I don't want to, I was very focused on school the first time, and the idea of becoming that consumed by school again is not appealing. I just have too many other things I'm trying to do. But I've always thought I would really like to study data analytics. What are 5 things you would tell your 20-year-old self? Well, I was in college at that time, so I would probably tell myself to relax and go out and enjoy life a little bit more. I was very, very focused on school. I kind of lived like a hermit. And I do think I missed out on some experiences by doing that. I would say something I've learned since then that I would want my older self to know is don't wait to tell people what they mean to you because you don't know how much time you have. I would tell myself to get into watching the WNBA because I would have loved to have been watching back then, looking at all these historical moments I could have been watching for that, and that kind of bums me out. I would also tell myself to not worry so much about classifying myself. I never considered myself a writer, so that was an avenue that it took me a while to go down because it wasn't a way I considered myself. And I think I've held myself back in a lot of ways by doing that. And the last thing I guess would be, don't be scared to go after things that you really want. Got a couple questions about beverages. The first is, tea and a book is a classic combination. Do you have a favorite tea for reading? And I sure do. It's the Paris tea from Harney & Sons. This plus a little bit of honey and a little bit of soy milk is exactly what I want when I'm reading. Second beverage related question is favorite beer, favorite local brewery, and do you enjoy seasonals? My favorite beer of all time has got to be Morning Fields from the local brewery Grist House, which is one of my favorite local breweries. It's Grist House and Hitchhiker that are probably my two favorites. I also do really like Great Lakes though, out of Cleveland. That's sort of local, I guess. But Morning Fields is this ale brewed with tea and also coffee. It's like a coffee and tea ale, and it's absolutely delicious. And yes, I do enjoy seasonals. I've been really enjoying all the Oktoberfest beers right now. And speaking of Pittsburgh, we have some Pittsburgh questions. What made you decide to move to Pittsburgh? Originally school, but also it's a really good place for my husband who works in the software industry. It's also very affordable to live here. What do you love most about living in Pittsburgh? Definitely not the weather. I really love the literary scene that we have here. I did a whole video about that. It's a very well-read city. There's so many different bookish things going on. I really love how affordable it is to live here. There's so much to do. The downtown area is absolutely beautiful. All of our different neighborhoods kind of have their own character. Like, depending on what you want out of the city, you can find your own place within one of the neighborhoods. And I think that's super cool. But I also love that we're the steel city. Like, there's a hardiness to the people who live here. There's a toughness to us because we put up with the weather, we put up with the driving. There are things that come with the Pittsburgh experience, but I think it makes us tougher. What Pittsburgh neighborhoods would you recommend for a young professional moving there? My favorite neighborhood is Squirrel Hill. Just period. I know a lot of people like Shadyside. I've always preferred Squirrel Hill. But the general rule when you're moving to Pittsburgh is you want to think about where you're working, and you don't want to have to cross a bridge or go through a tunnel in order to get there, just traffic-wise. If you're working from home, then you have your pick. And it does depend on what you want. So I wouldn't know how to recommend a neighborhood beyond my just base recommendation of Squirrel Hill because Squirrel Hill is amazing. But I would want to know more about what you're looking for before I would recommend a place. Favorite place to eat in Pittsburgh? Best places to eat in Pittsburgh? I like a lot of places downtown, of course. I really like the Proper Brick Oven and Tap Room. Condado Tacos is really good. A lot of things on Penn Avenue are great. Can you recommend a book that helped you better understand Pittsburgh or an aspect of its history? I sure can. There is a book called Meet You in Hell by the author Les Standiford, and it's about the rivalry between Andrew Carnegie and Henry Clay Frick, two very important figures within Pittsburgh history. And the last set of questions in this Q&A deals with my other hobbies. So people wanted to know, what are your other hobbies besides reading? What's your favorite hobby after reading? What is the least bookish activity that you enjoy? I like doing a lot of different things. I love to cook. I do a lot of cooking, a little bit of baking, but mainly cooking. I really like watching the WNBA. I really like basketball. I don't know if that would be the least bookish thing that I do because I am also a sportsbook reviewer, so it does also relate to my life as a reader. Everything seems to. I really like to play video games. I like to watch TV. I like to go out to breweries. I like to spend time with my husband and my friends. I like to play board games, a lot of different stuff. Related to the cooking thing, I got two different questions. What's your favorite meal to cook? What's your favorite meal you like to make? And maybe share a recipe of it. I've been making a lot of different things. I get a farm share, so a lot of what I've been making is kind of based on that. I make a lot of things also with tomatillos because I have a tomato allergy. I grow tomatillos in my backyard, so I guess also gardening is a thing I like to do. So I make a really good green chili, which is sort of a recipe I found online, but I've also adapted it, so I can't really link that. But a recipe I've been making a lot lately is this sweet potato chorizo skillet. I can link that down below. It's from Budget Bites. Although I use vegetarian chorizo, Morningstar frozen chorizo crumbles. And I also cook the rice ahead of time. Whoever runs that website, I forget what her name is, but she loves the idea of a one pot kind of thing. And the rice just doesn't cook at the same time as everything else. So I make the rice and I just combine everything together. And I also don't put the chorizo in so early because it gets rubbery because it's not real meat. So those are my adaptations to the recipe that I'll link below, but it's great for the fall. Sweet or savory? It depends on the day, but mostly savory. What's your favorite holiday? Thanksgiving, because I love to cook. And the last question of this entire Q&A is, what do you think you would have been doing if you hadn't discovered reading? I'm having trouble imagining a universe in which I wouldn't have discovered reading, just given the kind of person that I am and my upbringing. Because my mom was a teacher. I talked about that more in the first part of this Q&A. So reading and learning has always been a part of my life. I rediscovered it after college, but I guess if I hadn't have done that, then I probably would have found something else to occupy my time. There was a time in my life I wanted to go to culinary school. I have a lot of different interests. I'm not just a reader, and I think that shows in the type of nonfiction reading that I do. I'm interested in so many different things. So I would have found something else to be passionate about, something else to pour myself creatively into. So those are all the questions for my 25K Q&A. Thank you all so much for submitting these really interesting, thought-provoking questions. I got to talk about things I would have never dreamed of talking about if I hadn't have been asked about them. I'm just not that kind of person. And it was actually really good for me to get out of my comfort zone, talk about myself a little bit, even though I normally don't like to do that, exposure therapy and all of that. I think it was really good for me. And I hope these were fun to watch. I know they're super long, so thank you for hanging in there if you've made it to the end. Any comments or questions can go in the comment section below. Anything I mentioned in this video will be linked in the description box below. And at the bottom of that same description box, there will be links to all of my social media profiles, including Goodreads and Instagram, if you would like to keep up with what I'm reading and writing about right now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.